As Pam was wheeling her mother, Joan, into Mass this morning on her wheelchair, Joan called me over. And if there was a slight hesitation, Joan, it's because I kind of have this homily like going around in my head right before Mass. But I went over and she handed me a comic she had cut out of the newspaper. And so that was the end of my homily. Because the comic was way better than my homily ever was going to be. So in this comic, there has this little girl, and she's looking so sad and dejected. And she says, "When your birthday's on Christmas, everyone's too busy with toys, gifts, and merrymaking to remember it." And in the background is Jesus, standing over the little girl, saying, "Tell me about it. Tell me about it." Because it's exactly, I was reading this wonderful book by Matthew Kelly called Rediscover Catholicism. And he asks a great question in the book. What do you celebrate? What do you celebrate? Because what he's sharing in this book is that what you celebrate is what you become. Think about that. What you celebrate is what you become. Matthew Kelly says, what are we celebrating? Because you can be certain that we are becoming whatever we are celebrating. So this Christmas, what are we celebrating? Is it the gifts, the toys, the merrymaking? What are we celebrating? Because Matthew Kelly continues, we become what we celebrate. So what are you celebrating? Because what you're celebrating is what you're focusing on, what you're giving all your attention to. And you become what you celebrate. He continues, what are we celebrating as a culture? What are you celebrating? You have become the person you are because of the things you celebrate. Our culture has become what it is because of the things we celebrate. You can celebrate anything you wish. You can celebrate life and faith. You can celebrate love and honesty, mercy and forgiveness, kindness and generosity. You can celebrate truth, beauty, goodness, and redemption. But if you've ever read Matthew Kelly, he never leaves it there. He continues, on the other hand, you can celebrate destruction and paganism. You can celebrate hatred and violence, selfishness and greed, contempt and disrespect. You can celebrate perversion, corruption, pride, deceit, and condemnation. But one thing is certain. We become what we celebrate. This is the one immutable truth found in the life of every person who has ever lived. We become what we celebrate. It is true not only of the life of a person, but also of the life of a family. It is true of the life of a nation. And it is true of the life of the church. And so the question for us today is, what are we celebrating? What are we celebrating? As we're preparing for the coming of Christmas, what are we celebrating? How's your demeanor during this season? Is it filled with joy and peace? Or is this a season of added stress and anxiety and drama? because it'll make us focus on what we are celebrating, because it is our strong invitation during this season of Advent here at Holy Communion Church that we are celebrating Jesus. Jesus. I mean, when the stockings are hung by the chimney with care, do you have one for Jesus? Do you have a stocking for Jesus? Where's Jesus in all of this? I mean, what are we celebrating? Because when I reflect on what's happened to so much of this season, am I seeing Jesus in these celebrations? Or am I seeing an elf on the shelf? Am I seeing Black Friday craziness? Am I seeing not Jesus, but so much more? We are inviting everyone this season to celebrate Jesus. Why? What I love is because Matthew Kelly says we're celebrating Jesus because Jesus is still relevant. Jesus is still relevant. You can't ignore Jesus because he changed things. He is the single greatest agent of change in human history. He made the lame walk, taught the simple, set captives free, gave sight to the blind, fed the hungry, healed the sick, confronted the afflicted the comfortable, and in all of these captured the imagination of every generation. His teachings are not complex or exclusive, but simple and applicable to everyone, everywhere, in every time in history, regardless of age, color, or state in life. Beyond life's complexities, there is simplicity. Beneath the chaos and confusion of life, there is understanding. It is the gospel, the good news. Within it and through it, we find salvation. Part of that salvation is happiness. Not the foolish, empty happiness that this modern age associates with getting what you want, but rather a happiness deeper and higher than any we could imagine or design for ourselves. Jesus changed things. And the reality is, when we celebrate Jesus, he can continue to change things. He can continue to change us. He can fill us this season with hope. Hope. Because this world needs hope right now. On Friday, I had a friend called me all distressed. What are we going to do? There's a new variant of COVID in South Africa. And I thought to myself, is this world celebrating COVID right now? Is this world celebrating mask right now? Is this world celebrating self-quarantines right now? What is this world celebrating right now? What is it focusing on? And the reality is no matter what the challenges, even if the world is falling apart around us, when we celebrate Jesus, we will continue to have hope. As was put so powerfully in the Gospel of Luke chapter 21, verse 28, stand erect and raise your heads, because your redemption is at hand. Your redemption is at hand. And so let us prepare for the coming of Christmas during this Advent season by celebrating Jesus. Let's try to remember Jesus. You know who he is? The poor guy whose birthday's on Christmas.